In this video, we're going to explore how to effectively graph equations using our calculator. So this is a note, I'm going to be using a TI-84 Plus calculator for these demonstrations. If you have an 89, chances are it's very similar, but if you have like an Inspire or a different brand of calculator, it might be a little bit different. So if you do have a different type of calculator, it might be something we have to work on in class to figure out how to do it. But most people are going to have this type of calculator, so that's what we're going to use. And just in case you're curious, like, do I have a TI-84 Plus? All right, in the top corner it says it, and this is the emulator I'm using, so you can see it on my computer. And you can see the kind of buttons, TI-84 Plus. This is what it looks like. All right, so we just want to graph functions in this video. So in the top corner, you have the y equals button. And then once you type in your expression, then you just click the graph button in the top right, and that's going to graph your whatever you typed into y equals. If you typed in multiple things, it graphs them all. So you can do that. Some things that might help as well. There's a window button, which you can kind of adjust what the x values are and the y values are that you're looking at. In particular, a lot of questions will say something like, for 1 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 5 or something like that. So you only want to graph from 1 to 5. That way you're not looking at extra information. So the window can help you do that. We'll look at that in our example. And then zoom is another one. If you just want to zoom in or zoom out, that's helpful. But the most useful one is like when you're starting a new problem, if you do zoom and then the number 6, that'll get you back to the normal viewing window, which I'm pretty sure is always like -10 to 10 for the x values. So everyone can get back to like a normal window. That's the quick way to do it. All right, so let's just look at a demonstration of how to do this. So we'll just graph two functions. We'll graph cosine of 2x plus e to the x, and then x squared minus 6x plus 4. Just graph a couple random functions just to see how to do it. So if I go over to the emulator, all right, so this is what your calculator look like, and this would be the screen at the top of the calculator. And then these are the buttons. So we want to graph something. We need to tell you what our functions are, y equals. And our first one, type the cosine 2. This button here has a lot of different things, but most of the time it's going to be set for the x. There's a way to change it to the different variables, but you're not going to have to do those, so this will always be x, close my parentheses, plus. And there's two ways you can do e to the x. You can use the e, which is here. You have to do second to get the blue command. So you can do e raised to the x. You can also just do e to the x here, so I just do e to the x. E, and if you put anything in the exponent, we're going to put x. And for some reason, I put in 2 x's over here. I'm not sure why, so I'm just going to delete one of those. You don't always have to clear the whole expression. A lot of people clear the expression every time they make a mistake, but you can use the delete. If you want to add something in, you can use second insert. So say I accidentally got rid of both of these x's. I'm like, oh crap, I need to put an x in there. Then I can go there, second insert, and then put that x back in where it needs to be. All right, so that's my first function. I'll just go ahead and see what the graph looks like, so I can graph it clicking the graph button. And of course, we have that exponential, or that kind of cosine part, and it turns into an exponential. Let's go back to y equals, and I can scroll down to y2. Here I just want to do x squared minus 6x plus 4, and graph it. And I can regraph it there. Let's just say for some reason I had both these, but I only want to look at one graph at a time. If I go back to y equals, you can see these equal signs are kind of highlighted. If I go over to that and hit enter, it'll unhighlight that equal sign, and when I go back to my graph, it'll only graph the ones that are highlighted. And I can go back and click it again, and that'll regraph that blue graph. All right, the other things we talked about are the window. All right, so let's just say, like that example I gave, I can have the minimum x value, the maximum x value. I don't really advise changing the scale because it might get a little confusing, but you can change the min and max y value as well. So let's just say we're doing that example I made up, and they said we only care about these functions from x equals 1 to x equals 5. I can change my min and max, and when I graph it, this is 1 and that's 5. I could also change if I wanted to. Maybe I couldn't see as much. Oops, go to window of it as I wanted to. It seemed like it was low enough for the y, so -10 is probably enough for the y min, but the y max, maybe I change it to 25 instead of -10. And now I can see more of the graph up here when I change that. If I just want to zoom into a specific place, I can zoom in all these different ways. Zoom in is one you might want to do. You can kind of move the cursor around to the place you want to move in. All right, so say I want to zoom in here for some reason. And it just gives you a closer view of that piece of the graph. And you can actually just do it again right away. I'm gonna zoom in even more. All right, let's just say, okay, I finished the problem. Now I want to get back to the next time. I'm going to kind of see the big graphs again. Instead of like zooming out or changing the window, if you do zoom again, and then 6, that's standard. That goes back to the kind of original one. You don't have to, so you can scroll down and click it, or you can just click the number that corresponds. So this is 6, so I can just click 6. And that gets me back to that original graph. All right, so those are the basics of graphing. Again, you're going to type in your function in the y equals part. That'll get you your graphs. That'll be probably useful for 80% of the things you want to graph. But changing the window and zooming in and out are just some other things to help you get a good visual of what you're looking at.